Hey everybody, welcome in. Excited for this one today. A lot of you have been asking for it. Basically, who is the 1%? Who is the 1% of the world? Who's the 1% of Bitcoin owners? Where do I stand in the whole Bitcoin food chain? Well, I'm going to answer a ton of that. And I spent a long time crunching numbers because this is not an easy problem to solve. In fact, it's one of the hardest problems I've had to solve. So, as usual, let's just go right in. This channel is about math, money, and freedom, and you're going to see a lot of numbers in this one, but they're all going to be interesting, and each one tells a story. And as a disclaimer, this is just edutainment, so enjoy. Again, a lot of material to get through, so I'm going to go really fast. If it's going too fast, you can always hit pause and catch up. But remember, first of all, before we do jump in, be calm. So less than 500,000 people have one Bitcoin. So there's a chance for everybody. I'm going to go more into exactly what that means and where people stand. And another way to look at it as well is owning one Bitcoin. What does it mean? Well, I always talk about rarefied air with a maximum of 14 million Bitcoin. And you've all heard me before. A lot are lost. At least 4 million are lost. And there's another million that will never surface again from Satoshi. So really we're talking conservatively 13.5 million Bitcoin, but I'm rounding up to 14 million. In a world with 7.6 billion people that was growing astronomically, owning one full Bitcoin will put you in a class of your own. So everybody, as I've been saying from day one, is get into that one Bitcoin Wholecoiner club. But I'll go deeper into what all that means. So approximately 25 million people own Bitcoin today. Some people say it's a little bit higher. Some people say it's a little bit lower. I think it's about that. Now, there's a lot of dust in that as well. There's some people that may have 5 cents or 50 cents in a wallet. I kind of exclude them for the purpose of this. Also, 7 million people own a significant amount of Bitcoin per Kathy Wood. And what I mean by significant amount, that's over 0.1 of a Bitcoin. So think about that. So the assumptions for this study anyway is at least 2 addresses per person of the whole list of addresses. I analyzed the amount of treasuries. I analyzed the amount that are held on exchanges. I looked at addresses that are dead, lost, Bitcoins, empty accounts, etc. And I'm also assuming the Bitcoin price today is 55,000. So it's important. I always have people in comments trying to catch me out and question my math and stuff, but they're the assumptions anyway. Second of all, if you look at Bitcoin today, so assuming our 14 million Bitcoins, population 7.6, that means the amount of Bitcoin per human being on Earth is 0.0018. Very, very little. So to have more than the average human being, all you have to do is spend $100 in Bitcoin. Today, $100.85, and you have more than the average human being on Earth. And that's something everybody needs to strive for, okay? First thing, if you don't have any now, get $100 and just grab some. So, what is the 1% club? So, this has been flying around for a long time, and I've made videos on this as well, but nobody really has the proper answer, except for me today. And I worked really hard to figure it out. So, the 1% club refers to the top 1% of Bitcoin holders worldwide. And some people say it's somewhere in a threshold range between 0.28 Bitcoins up to 15 Bitcoins. And that will put you in that area. But that 0.28 or 0.24 up to 15 is such a broad range. When you guys are making plans and you're striving to be in that 1%, you want to know exactly what it is. So I think I've cracked it today. And just a quick note, simple is not easy. This is not easy to do. It does take into account a lot of assumptions and a lot of numbers and a lot of crunching and a lot of backtesting. So let's just jump in with some more stats. So the median Bitcoin ownership today is about $2,035 from 25 million people. And that equates to 0.037 Bitcoins. So that is the median amount. And for those of you who don't know the difference between average and median is where everything congregates. Second of all, for this analysis, I used COINBASE as a proxy of average Bitcoin holding per customer. And this was I tested a whole bunch of exchanges, but these guys had the best, most public information. So if you imagine COINBASE customers in 2021, 56 million customers, They hold 11% of all Bitcoin on their exchange, according to statements. And the Bitcoin per customer on Coinbase is 0.0275 Bitcoins, which means the value of Bitcoin per customer on Coinbase is about $1,500. Now, why did I do that? And the idea is to really understand how much the average holder, wallet, etc. has, and to backtest. So as a backtest, what I did was I took my model and compared owners holding less than one Bitcoin. And in my model, the number of people that do that hold about 1.13 million Bitcoins, resulting in an average of 0.03 Bitcoins per person with less than one Bitcoin. That means the average holding value is 1658, which is extremely close to the Coinbase numbers of 1512. So from that perspective, I had confidence that my model kind of fit to a large extent. Again, this is always approximations, but it's going to be pretty accurate. Let's go a little bit deeper. So using my model, another way to stratify different segments as well. If you look at people that own less than 100 Bitcoins, that's 7.1 million Bitcoins. The average holding is 0.186 Bitcoins, or about $10,200. Remember, when I pull out the segment, I stratify people with less than 100 Bitcoins, that takes out all the big players, the high net worth individuals, the treasury organizations, the whales, etc. It just looks at kind of the average people. Because when you start going upstream and the number of people that actually hold 1,000 or more, it's actually very few individuals. So if you take less than 100, that is about an average holding value of Bitcoin about $10,000. Less than 10, it's about $4,000, and less than 1, it's about 1658. So these are kind of good numbers to know, kind of stress test where you are. Now, the other thing that's really important to know is the supply is really drying up. So if you look at the listed companies that have added Bitcoin to the treasury, the average amount that they purchased is 5,300 Bitcoins. So every time an institution buys a big chunk of Bitcoin, they deny many other individuals the ability to buy Bitcoin because they grab it. So for example, if you imagine the average treasury company, 5,384 Bitcoins off the market, they are denying nearly 3 million people. Now, if you look at the amount of people that Michael Saylor has denied, that's 52 million people. So him buying over 90,000 Bitcoins has prevented 52 million people from ever getting their hands on Bitcoin. Just think about that for a second. And I personally believe the number of treasuries that have purchased Bitcoin is way more than what's listed from those 33 companies on bitcointreasury.org. Because I know small companies, I know guys who have like plumbing shops and everything else, and they have actually bought Bitcoin within their small little company with 5 employees or 10 employees. I know medium-sized insurance companies that have put it on the treasury. So again, we don't even know how many companies are doing this, but it's not all bad news. So there are other ways to own one Bitcoin, and I've factored all this in as well into my calculations. So imagine you want to own one Bitcoin without buying one Bitcoin. Well, you could buy 106 shares of Microstrategy. That'll cost you about $69,000 today, right now. Remember, one share of Microstrategy means you buy, by proxy, approximately 0.0094 Bitcoins. And another way to do it would, of course, be to buy the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. And again, based on the Bitcoin price today, lifetime feed, I assume 55,000 Bitcoin price for all of these models. But the GBTC price today now is about $47.81. Bitcoin price 54,000. You get 0.0009471 Bitcoin per GBTC. So that means if you want to buy one whole Bitcoin, you have to buy 1,055 GBTCs, which will cost you about $50,000. So you can see, GBTC is a cheaper way to buy than MicroStrategy, but MicroStrategy has options, and it's a little more volatile and it's more fun to play. So just think about that as well. So it's not all doom and gloom. Now, what I also wanted to do is put together kind of a pyramid. So I looked at the 10 wealthiest countries in the world, So the US holds about 30% of all global wealth, about 106 trillion. These are 2019 numbers. China is number 2, 63, and it'll grow fast. In fact, in 5 years, it wouldn't surprise me if China was over $100 trillion. Japan, 25 trillion, Germany, 14, UK, 14. Uncanny the way they're so close. Same with France. India, 12, Italy, 11, Canada, 8. A lot of Canadians in the audience here. And Spain, 7. Now, the reason I do this is for this reason. I want to build a Bitcoin pyramid. But first, I wanted to show you the changes of wealth over the last 10 years. And again, this is also very, very important for us to know. So the number of millionaires doubled, which is staggering. Went from 24 million to 47 million. And in the year 2021, it's said to be about 51 million millionaires on Earth. So obviously, as fiat currency debases and high net worth individuals earn more from stocks in the S&P 500 that are going up, of course, there'll be more millionaires. And of course, property values are increasing by 12% a month in some places. So it's a crazy time. Now, the 100K to $1 million band grew by 50% over the last 10 years. The 10K to 100K band grew by 60%, which is staggering. And the bottom tier shrank by 12%. So what you can see here is people are actually doing better and climbing up the food chain. So that's all goodness. So what I tried to do is put together a similar type of pyramid for Bitcoin ownership as well. So if you look at this pyramid here, the top 1% of Bitcoin owners is about 260,000 people, and they own greater than 3.3 Bitcoins. The next 10%, and I mimicked the proportions of the previous pyramid, the next 10% is about 5.2 million people owning greater than 0.03 Bitcoin, but less than 3.3 Bitcoin. The next 30% is about 6.2 million people, which is greater than 0.0038 Bitcoin. And the bottom 60% own 0.0002 Bitcoin. It's about 15 million people. Now, the average value of each threshold is the gray is about $12 average value, green $213, blue $41,000. So it's 20x larger. And the red tier, 156 million. So what I just wanted to show you is the range and dispersion of Bitcoin wealth across the areas and how that pertains back to actual other wealth. And the reason I'm highlighting this is because it may be very difficult to get up the pyramid in the previous chart, but it's a lot easier in the Bitcoin chart. So there's hope for everybody, and I want you all to know that. So let's look at some more numbers in great detail. I'll go as quick as I can here. So according to my calculations and my assessment, and I broke them out by, I stratified Bitcoin ownership by all the major areas that I know you're all interested in, like 0.01 to 0.02 Bitcoins, or 1 to 2 Bitcoins, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. So you'll see where you fit on this actual scale. But the really interesting statistic is 95% of coins are owned by the top 2% of addresses. And that is kind of staggering. Another interesting data point is 76% of addresses hold 0.2% of coins. So the average holding for these people is about $126. So imagine 76% of all Bitcoin owners only own $126 worth. And that's why I said it's very important for everybody to have at least $100 worth of Bitcoin. No matter what you do, no matter how old you are, go get it, grab it, etc. Now, it's also interesting if you look at the gap between both, between the top 2% and the bottom 76%, you have about 22%. And that 22% owns about 4.8% of all Bitcoin. And that's where most of us play. Now, another way to look at this as well, pull up one other quick chart here. To be in the top 1% of all Bitcoin holders, and I worked hard on this, and it is as accurate as I could possibly do. You need to own more than 3.3325 Bitcoin, and that will put you in the top 1% of all Bitcoin holders. Now, another thing to really understand about that is, as there's more on-ramps to Bitcoin through things like Microstrategy, GBTC, etc., people are getting more Bitcoin through retirement funds and other ways of investing. So it may not be apparent here, But that's what's happening now with treasuries and high net worth individuals and whales getting bigger. I anticipate in about 6 months to a year's time that 3.3 Bitcoins will actually be less, because there's going to be more concentration of wealth at the top of the pyramid. So bear that in mind as well as we go forward. Now, to be in the top 2.5% of all Bitcoin holders, you need greater than half a Bitcoin. Everybody should have half a Bitcoin. Having one whole Bitcoin is rarefied air, and everybody should strive for that. But if not, think about getting a half a Bitcoin. And to be in the top 0.5% of all Bitcoin holders, you need more than 7 Bitcoin. And that will cost you about $421,000 today. Not cheap. And it was a lot cheaper back in October or in March last year. Now, wrapping up here real fast, there are 2 1% clubs I want you all to be aware of in my world, and people get confused. My job is to dispel all confusion. So in summary, the 1% club of all Bitcoin owners will cost you $183,000 today. And that means you need to own 3.3325 Bitcoin, which is a beautiful number. Those threes are calculated, not done there by chance. Now, to be in the 1% club of planet Earth for Bitcoin ownership, that'll cost you about $1,600, and you'll need to own 0.0297 Bitcoin to own more than 99% of the world's population. So again, after you get your $100, you should strive to get your $1,600 and then move up the food chain. Now, Bitcoin per millionaire, this is very interesting. Based on my numbers of 51 million millionaires on Earth and 14 million Bitcoins, of which many of them are already gone, there is only 0.27 Bitcoins per millionaire. So if you are a millionaire and you're hoping to get a Bitcoin, move fast. There simply isn't enough of this stuff to go around. So in conclusion, as always, thank you for staying to the end. There's a couple of important pieces here. We are still very early, supply is dwindling, and everybody has a chance. So bear that in mind. And second thing as well, in terms of Wholecoiners, there will never be more than 416,000 Wholecoiners. That is 0.00542% of the world population. And the population is dwindling. What I mean by that is the population of Wholecoiners is dwindling as enterprises and high net worth individuals grab the concentration of the whales goes to the top. So again, that 416,000 will be maybe 350,000 Wholecoiners in a couple of years or less. Now, the other piece that some of you are interested in, and I have some 10 coiners on Patreon, and a lot more, a couple of 100 coiners too. There's no more than 110,312 people, by my calculations, that will ever own more than 10 Bitcoins. Now that's a lofty goal, but if you can do it, great. Think about being a 10x a Wholecoiner in that very, very rarefied air. And big thank you to everybody on Patreon. And I know you guys were looking for this information, and it took me a long time to put together, but I will share all my data and sheets with you as well. And hope you like this content. Hit the like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye.